Ah, perfect. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so I started with one disclaimer. My second one is that my demo is not going to use Heartcore. It's going to use the Umbraco I downloaded today. I will talk about Heartcore, but at the moment I've got a bit of a sulk on with Heartcore. The demo that I did with this one previously was using an instance that we'd had for years. And the challenge with instances that you've had for years and have been working amazingly, and it's a big benefit for using Hardcore in the cloud because it just sits there and it works, and you just can forget all about it. And then the problem is you forget all about it and you don't renew your credit card, and then you find that you've lost the instance. So that then, after having a sulk and walking around and trying to decide if I was ever going to use Umbraco again, I've decided that I will do, but I wanted to have a go with the latest version, so I've downloaded that. But a lot of what I'll say is applicable to hardcore, and the key thing I've always found with that is the fact you can just spin it up in the cloud and forget about it for years on end, apart from your payment details, is a godsend. Fortunately, the client that was using it no longer uses it, so I think I may have heard sooner than that. But it's yeah, it was a slightly awkward morning. So there we go. That's about as far as I've got with my animations on these. So I was going to start off with just giving a bit of background about myself, and then talk about how we use Umbraco. Um, then just start looking at this the software, and then I will start doing some prototyping so that you can see how this workflow work and how they can be useful. I'm not necessarily expecting that the demo will sort of blow your socks off, but what it might show you, for any of you that haven't used n8n before, is actually how easy it is to use and to get started with. And I'll cover that as we go. So just a little bit about myself. I live in Lavenham in Suffolk. Now it's famous for two main reasons. One of them is it is one of the best preserved medieval villages in the world. And the second, more important one, is it's actually the real life Godric's Hollow. So they used Lavenham for the filming of whichever Harry Potter film, where he goes back to his house and finds it's all wrecked. So that's featured in the film, and there is a person that I know who lives in what is the Harry Potter house, who's probably made a good hundred thousands of pounds worth of value on his house just by being able to get a bit of interest in that. But he does have people standing outside his door the whole time. So my career's probably a bit different than, well, I don't know, it may be a bit different than some of yours, but I'm not really a developer. Um, I started out as an IT manager. I did project management. I worked in furniture. And eventually, I sort of got a bit interested in development, found myself out of a job and got some contract work as a software developer. And off the back of that, I've built up a company called Chick Digital. Um, One of the very first clients I dealt with needed somebody to learn Umbraco. That was back with Umbraco 6, and or maybe it was 4. But anyway, I learned it, loved it, and did that for many years. I don't use it quite as much, and don't do as much on the content um and the website building as I used to. I still got a few that are live. We've got a sort of a B2B website that we use with Green King. One of the hardcore instances is used by Gay Times, but we've also worked on ones for big companies like Compass Group. They're a big one in the UK, but I'm more than happy to show some examples if or share some if anyone's interested. Um, so we have um started started out doing Umbraco and got quite a lot of work, built up a little agency in Colchester in Essex. There's five of us full-time employees. We deal heavily with contractors and developers, like freelance developers and designers. So, always interested in meeting people who are interested in collaborating. Um, but the most important fact about Colchester is it was the capital of Britain at one point. So some of the people like Dean, obviously, living in near Colchester knows it, but unfortunately, it lost its capital status after the Boudiccan revolt. And don't worry, I've now got 6 slides on what the Boudiccan revolt was, so we'll keep you interested on that. So basically over time, I've, like I said, started doing less content management and doing more big data and data-driven systems. So really our sweet spot now is dealing with kind of millions of rows worth of data, turning that into insights, using AI to try to customize at scale and produce insights at scale. And we deal a lot with wholesalers and retailers and manipulating their data, combining it, aggregating it, trying to get a view that ultimately gives suppliers a competitive advantage by identifying opportunities at the strategic and tactical levels. So I guess the things that we tend to do for people, I've included the client wall because I think you're legally obliged to do that if you ever do one of these presentations. Um, so I think what we kind of offer is a bit of technical leadership, not necessarily a lot of the companies we deal with won't have like a head of IT or a head of digital, or they won't have technical skills in house. And we kind of work with companies and provide a bit of that. Not in terms of being sort of an IT manager, but giving them a bit of a view on how they can use IT in their business and helping them make good choices when they invest in technologies and plan their strategies. Then a lot of what we do is around the development integration. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a second, but then ultimately it's about trying to deliver insight. And I think the key way we try to work with people is basically try to show them what we can do as quickly as possible. So that's where proof of concepts or rapid prototypes or whatever we want to call them come in really important for us, because we quickly found that actually we weren't great at pitching to people, and often would be up against much bigger companies. And rather than spending 10 days doing a pitch for somebody and then losing it, we found with a much better rate if we spent sort of 5 or 10 days just showing them what we could do. And that's the approach, is rather than try to win a big project and all that comes with that, we just try to start working with companies by finding a pain point that we think we can help with. And that's where what we're talking about today is really helpful for us. So where Umbraco is really important for us is it allows us to easily represent data models. Now, I'll probably use different interchanging words. I like the phrase data model. It's just obviously how the client's data can be represented. And I'm talking at quite an abstract level. It's just the fact that the client will have some data that they want to do something with. And one of the big challenges that we find is actually making applications on at the kind of the lower end of the budget. You can easily get up all your budget just finding a way of having forms that collect data, having input stuff. That is always a nightmare when you're doing a kind of an MVP, because you make an application, it does something amazing, and then someone goes in and I've done ones where it's been driven by for really quite big companies where it's driven by a CSV file or something like that, and someone goes in and puts a comma in the wrong place, and the whole thing crashes. And then when you demo it to the client, they say, "Well, there's no way we're going to take this any further because it falls over," and that's where Umbraco is great. It allows us to build a data model that means something to the client and allows them to input the right data in the right places with validation without us spending hours and hours having to build anything. We can basically spin up a hardcore instance. We can spin up a new instance of Umbraco, build out a few document types, and use those to manage the data and make sure that the data that's input is valid. So this is an example of a recent application that we built using it. It's for a company called Muntons. They are a they're a malt well, not manufacturer. That's not, I guess you don't manufacture malt. Producer, I don't know what the right word is. Farmers, they basically take malt, process it, and turn it into products that go into food. One of the big parts of their business is homebrew. So people buying kits to make at home, and we work with them on creating an application that had an Umbraco driven API, a React front end that allowed people to build their application, to build their own brew and save it and come back and review it and share it and all those kind of things. And where Umbraco was amazing there was actually it's a really tricky making your own beer is really difficult because you can't, for example, you can't make a lager that's like 12% because it just doesn't work because of the ways you put it in. It wouldn't end up being a lager, it would end up being a different kind of drink. And you can't put in particular ingredients with other ingredients because it just wouldn't work. And by creating that data model, it allowed us to build up a way whereby the client could manage all of that themselves and not choose contradictory options. So they couldn't put the wrong hop in with the wrong thing. So if I just quickly, here we go. If I just really quickly show you that. Was it behind? Yeah, see, it's really protected because it's hidden away somewhere. Uh, there we go. Right, this was exactly how I wanted to demo it. Verify now. That was it. API homebrew. So just because this is what I would have shown you. I'd shown you something similar to this within Heartcore. So but the principle is exactly the same here. Uh so just give it a second to load up. As you can see, we've always kept this completely up to date with the latest versions. Mm, Come on, give it a second. Ah, yeah, there you go. It's one of the benefits of presenting is that every second feels like a lifetime. So when you're waiting for something to load up, it is painful. Right. What I'll do is I'll keep that loading in the background, and when that's finally come back and decide to start. Oh no, here we go. Yep, exactly like I thought. But I'll move this across. Now, I won't spend too much time talking to you guys about Umbraco because the reality is you guys will know it better than I do. Um, I'll if you have a look here, So, for example, recipe suggestions. So we've got all of our beers listed there. So if we look at the lagers, you can see here the like the range. Oh, that's a pre-made one. But if I was to go to the extract, which is at the core of it, and then go to uh styles. Let's go styles actually. So if I look at a Vienna lager, so you can see here we've made it so that the user can choose the range of APIs that they can have, and each of these have got additional information about it because that relates to the amount of sugar that you have to put into it. So this is the kind of thing where a user could quite easily put in completely random information or mistakes, within that information, and end up getting someone to make homebrew that blows your socks off when they hadn't intended to do that. So that's means that basically it's really easy for the user to be able to control it. We can capture information in a way that the client can manage it, and we can use that in the application without having to build some big complex database that keeps all of the information about how much, about the factors of some of these different attributes. So you can see here where we've got, so that value, that these values relate to stuff within the calculations that we then perform so that somebody can get the right beer at the end of it. So that's basically how we use Umbraco. Um, like I said, it's probably not especially exciting to you guys in terms of, I'm sure you guys can all do much better and more complicated stuff with it, but that's just a bit of a key. And that's kind of the point I was making there about the data models, is it just means that when we're producing an MVP, when we're making something that we want people to use, and be able to, the people aren't excited about whether or not it can take, they want to see the output. So a business will come to us with a problem, like, for example, they've got a workflow that's just unmanageable because they've got to generate 50 different languages of content or of descriptions for their product, or they need to try to understand the compliance of their retailers in how they're activating promotions within their stores. The context can be really broad. And what we would then do is work with them to sort of come up with a concept of how we could fix that. So, for example, with that thing about retailers activating in store to check that retailers are actually doing their jobs properly, we came up with a concept called the picture portal, which is where retailers would take pictures on their phone, upload them, and that would then be visible by the head office so that they can demonstrate to their staff that the retailers have done what they've said they want to do, or they can take sort of the follow-up action they need to. But it's quite a big project, that, and people are reluctant to chuck lots of money at that until they know, is this actually going to work? Is this going to work? A, from a conceptual point of view, but B, from a sort of a technical point of view. And that's where we make these proof of concepts. And the challenge always is that the budgets are tight and you want to make them as quickly and easily as possible while still having control over the data that's at the heart of what we do and what these applications are going to do. So some of the simple bits, like within Umbraco, like the fact you can easily build up things like nested content with a document type that can have nested nested elements underneath that, makes it perfect to allow us to create complicated data models and give the users some control over it whilst it all still being safe. So n8n, it's basically another workflow management tool. I guess the things it does really well is it is actually, I've used a few of these and I hate them as a passion. I hate anything. Well, as soon as someone shows me a visual representation of something, I go cold because I just I never see they never they all seem way more hard work to me than just writing a script or writing some code. But this one actually is really good. It's also got really good integration with all of the AI models and lots of other tools. And it is open source, and you can use that within your business. There's some limitations on how you can use it from an open source perspective. I'm not an expert on it, but it's not it, I know you can definitely use it within your organization. I think there's some limitations around reselling it, but that's way beyond my pay grade. But and where I find it great is in our world where we've set up an Umbraco site to represent a complex data model. Um, we can then use this to quickly build out a workflow, an event-driven workflow that typically we would have to do with like we might then, when we move to production, remove all of this and actually replace it with like Lambda functions or something like as your equivalent of Lambda functions, Power Apps, I think it is, and make something that's a bit more robust, or that's more closely integrated within the rest of our ecosystem that we're operating in or developing for. But it's great to be able to just quickly demonstrate that you can, what's the art of the possible. You can take it through to production. Companies use n8n in production in high volume, scalable environments. It's just we've never done that. So now I'm going to go into the demo bit. Did anyone have any questions on the first bit, first half of that? Is there anything that I didn't cover or you wanted to ask about? I've got plenty of Harry Potter related answers. So, but yeah, okay, I'll carry on now. The thing I really love about this n8n is it's so simple to get started and to get going. And I'm pretty old school. So you can probably tell by my age. When I started doing development, we had FTP, we copied files onto servers by hand, all of this kind of stuff. And I always, my heart sinks a little bit when you hear all these commands you may have put in. You think, yeah, they're never going to work and it's going to give me a load of messages. But this has been a joy to work with and to learn. So really, the only site you need is the GitHub repo. And we want to use the main public accessible one. So literally all we need to do is clone the repo. I've got my Umbraco instance I use for the demo. I'm going to make a directory called USA. Check that out. Right, and then I'm going to put into that this. And then, so while that's pulling it down, what I'm then going to do is I'm going to start it up within Docker because that's the easiest way of doing it. And I want to still prove that I can do these kind of that I'm cool enough to use Docker, and I, as an old dog, can learn new tricks. So what's one of the things that's brilliant about this is when you start it up, the account that you've created, the data, I mean, obviously there's different ways of looking at this, but your account, even on this local instance, I'm going to start up from scratch, will be linked to one to the information that I've got elsewhere. So it like I've created an account with n8n. I can log in and retrieve some of my existing projects from there. I can look at those. It saves some of the settings. I have also got a backup already set up. So if this doesn't go as wonderfully smoothly as I promised it will, we can switch over to that and I can do go through all of that. But while it's doing that, I have created a really simple Umbraco site. And this Umbraco site literally consists of two document types. I have got logged out. Uh, go. Right. So in terms of document types, so I've got my price change element, which is a folder. It's literally a folder because what my client wants is they want a way for them to be able to record all of their internal workflows. Their view is they're going to take all of the stuff they run in Excel, like price changes, like product descriptions, and they want to put it into an online system. And they've looked at lots of different PIMs and DAMs and all these kinds of stuff, but they want to build something custom because they need it to integrate with lots of their legacy software. So that's the made up requirement. So I've taken the first example of being a price change request, and I've created a really simple model. So literally, we're going to have the reason the price is changing, and I've put some validation to say it's got to be at least 50 characters long. So this is how it's really useful for us. So we can stop people from building, because as you guys all probably know, with half of the challenge with building software is all the error handling, isn't it? It's all like you can write software that can do something really powerful really quickly. It's then when you have to actually make it work in the real world when not everything's perfect and controlled. So Umbraco allows us at the conceptual level of proving that a process could work, we can set those parameters. And then I've got a price, which I think I've just set to numeric, and it can be between £1 and £100 or $1 and $100. Um, so I've created two products already. I've got because I work with Green King, I've got Abbott Ale. I'm not obsessed with beer. It does feel like everything I've spoken about has related back to beer, but I do other things as well. Um, we've got a whole section on gin, um, and then we've got Green King IPA. So I've just put in some really simple descriptions there with the price information. Now my oh, that's going really slowly. Right, I reckon what we'll do is we'll go back into here. This one. I've got one. I'll go to my existing one I've already got. Where is it? Right, let me stop that. All right, I've got one called CD. Yeah, that looks fair. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is run my Docker command, which I had earlier, and hopefully that should spin it up. Give it a quick few seconds. It's spun up already. So I can then go over to the, I've got running on my local host. I've already been logged in. So we can see here a couple of workflows that I've made. So the first one here is the one that I did when I used to have Heartcore. And this one, so I'm using just a click event here, but it used Heartcore's GraphQL functionality to pull in information, like these are articles, run them through an OpenAI conversation that converted them into multiple different languages and then saves them to a HTML file. So we're going to do something similar-ish to that. But we'll create a new one. What our workflow is going to do is we're going to start again just with a manual trigger. But what we're going to, and just for the purpose of demoing, we're going to make ourselves a new product, which is going to be called Ease Up IPA. And oh, I guess we need 4 times 440 mil. Oh, call it properly. And we're going to say here, the price of Ease Up IPA has increased by 60%. No, we'll say by 20% because the cost of barley has increased by 60% and we have to pass on. Oh, so here we go. So Green King are selling this to pubs and to retailers, and they're saying the price has gone up to £50 or $50 because of the increase in barley. Don't actually know if you have barley in that particular product, but that probably wouldn't impact it anyway. But so we've set that up. The bit I need here. So I've installed the delivery API, the content delivery API and configured that, which is amazing. I'm going to copy that ID just for simplicity. And what we're going to do is we're now going to set up our first real step. So we're going to call a HTTP request. So what would happen in reality is we'd set up a webhook, and I'll show you how to do that in a bit. A webhook that's going to call the API and give us the response that we need. That's going to start our workflow. So what's really helpful is when you're doing your workflows, you can actually just generate it step by step. So you can take the data through really easily through it. And the visibility and usability, if you've ever used any of these workflow things, you'll see how powerful this is compared to a lot of them, because they can be ridiculously painful. In fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to edit this first one to make it a little bit more like a real web request. So we're going to put in the ID of the price that just changed. Go. So in reality, this might be a webhook. calling this to say, right, a new product's come along. So now I'm going to do a HTTP request, and I want to get back that information from the API that I've created. No, that's not it. Get this one here. So what I'm going to do here, so I'm going to do a simple GET request. I haven't put any authorization on this, but obviously that's quite an easy way of authenticating it. And I'm just going to use an expression. And the expression, anything within these curly brackets, is just JavaScript syntax. So I'm accessing the JSON object, getting the ID from it. So that's given me a valid API request to pull back that content. So I'm going to test that, and you can see back that we've got our information about the price increasing and why. So now what the client wants is for us, hang on, I'm just going to cheat a little bit and have my other one open so I can remember what the next step is. I think so what the client is now doing is they want to be able to translate some of this into other languages. So they've got this challenge that they sell us all over the world and they get fed up having to translate it. So I was going to use the AI features just because they're really powerful and really easy to integrate. So I'm going to use an open AI, and I'm going to use a message module. So I'm going to just literally use that to speak. And this is where, if you look up n8n online, a lot of people are creating some really funky workflows and some really cool things. And a lot of people are doing some really potentially unethical things of using it to automate building some websites that, or some, ways of sort of automating and I guess the equivalent in the AI age of what we'd call black hat SEO. So you can see here I've set up, it's remember my accounts, which is great because that saves a load of time. And we're going to message a model, and we're going to choose from the list I think I went for 4.1. So this is, I've literally just got an API key from OpenAI, put that information in my credentials, and I can now talk to it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to ask it to translate it into, right, just to make this easier, I'm going to copy. So here we go. So please translate into French. So now what I want, so this is quite easy. So I'll change it over to use an expression, and I can literally then bring in the reference to it. So it's creating me a dynamic reference each time. So here we go. So please translate into French that. So test that. So I can validate it's working in real time. And as we can see, the price of that's whatever how they say it in French. But because we're trying to do it for multi different languages, I thought I would also try to add in the other most commonly spoken English versions of well, the version of English languages, the ones you see in all the films. Everybody in a film that's depicted as English either speaks in ye olde English, so going back to the medieval bits, Cockney rhyming slang, so in all the gangster movies, or they speak like an English gentleman. So we're going to get all of those translations in there as well. So we can see here how it's translated those across. I think if I feature like that, uh, now I don't really like the way that's coming back, so I'm going to ask it to um, format that a bit better, just so that I can actually makes it a bit more readable. And I don't want, so I'm going to test that. I'm still not really liking it. Oh, no, that's why. It's because I need to put the output as JSON. So it actually formats the output in the right format. Here we go. So now you can see we've got French. We've got how um, the old people in Colchester before that uprising or whatever it was must have used to spoken. Barley shot up by, and then we've got Cockney rhyming slang, um, and an English gentleman. So there we go. So um, that's covered all of those key bases off. So right now we've got that. We can now add in our next step. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create an S3 bucket, and we're going, oh, that's the wrong S3. I need to, there's a couple different S3s. I need the actual AWS S3 one. And I know you guys probably all use Azure, but that's again above my pay grade, which is probably the wrong thing to be saying. But so what I'm now going to do is I've got a bucket that already exists called n8n demo Umbraco. But what I want to do is um create a folder within that for each of my products so that I can group all of the content for all of the all of the content for that together. So I've already linked into my AWS account. It was quite straightforward, just a case of um setting that up. We're going to now put what am I doing here? I don't want that there. I put that in the wrong place. There we go. Um create a folder, and I'm going to put that in there. So I will, my bucket is called this, and I'm going to use an expression for it. What's quite nice, I can go back to some of the previous steps, like HTTP request here, because I want to find a decent name for my bucket. And actually, this path is the perfect name for my bucket. But because I'm pretty nifty at the old JavaScript, I can take off the uh slashes, so it gives me a nice clean name. So it's going to come up just like that, and I can test that step. And so now if I go into S3, I should have one in here called ease up IPA. So there we go. We've now created a new folder for that. And then I think as the final step, um, I think probably what I'll do is I will add in another AWS thing, and I'm going to, no, actually, maybe if I create a file, application, Right, I'm going to convert my data to a CSV. And I think I've done it again. Yeah, I've put that at the wrong spot. So what I really want to do, there we go. If you've ever used anything like Zapier, you'll see how for building a flow, this is much easier to do, or in my opinion, is much easier to do. So what I want to do is I want to convert this input I got back from the OpenAI request into a CSV. And the data I'm going to put in is that. Let's see what it does. So there we go. Let's have I think that's not quite what I wanted. If I do just that. So I don't hold up much hope for this one. Right, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to convert it. I'm just going to take one just to make it actually work. I'm going to make a text file, I think. That might be easier. Right, I'm going to write a file to this. Oh, that's a different one I had before. Apologies. Right.
There was an option convert JSON to file, convert to file, convert JSON to
That's not a bad shout. Let's have a look at that. And
convert JSON data to binary data. So is that it?
yeah, that might well be it. Yeah, I say extract from JSON. Um, no, I also want this one here. I want my data to be this.
I think there was a convert rather than extract, Matt. I don't know if that.
That might be a good one to check. Okay. If not, we might have to go back to the one I made earlier. Um, convert.
Convert to file?
Yeah, that sounds much better. Um, so what convert to CSV, do you reckon?
I think, well, I'm guessing.
There
So
was a convert to text, a couple of.
that might be safer. Let me do a convert to text. Good shout.
Yeah, there you go. Well,
Yeah, fantastic. So we're going to keep this nice and simple, and we're just going to put the
API.
HT. That put this here in here.
Second. There we go.
Oh, input field. Oh, I see. Right. So in there, I think it's not liking the object. Let me just do the French version or the ye old English version into it. Maybe. Right. So what I've cleverly done here is come up with a way so that I can show you how easy it is to swap to different projects. So I'm going to save this one and I'm going to go back to home and I'm going to go into the one I did earlier. There you go. So on this one, if we did an edits field to get the content.
So the file was in the AWS instance, I think. Matt, I did notice it in there as well.
Back when I looked at it on
Yeah,
the
you came out of the AWS instance. There was an option within the AWS instance to save it to a file as well.
oh yeah, I think that's what I've done here. So
Yeah,
let's try.
that's what I'm looking at it now. I was thinking it when if you
Yeah,
want to go back, it probably
let's see if
just
we
do it
can.
within AWS. That's all.
Yeah, good shout. So if I now go back to my workflow, so as you can see, the benefit of switching between different ones. Let's get rid of this step here. Right, and we're going to put in S3, and then we're going to upload the
Upload a file.
file. Here we go. And so if we execute, I want this one here.
No, don't you want the OpenAI one with the translations in it?
Yeah, that's. I think the challenge I got here is I need to kind of run it again
Yeah.
to get my right. Okay, test step. Perfect. Uh, oh, here we go. Yeah, so I've got my thing there. Got my test API. Gonna test that again. Yep, got all of them. Got my AWS S3. So I'm assuming, oh, there we go. And then here, so now I can go back to the AI one. I can take this here. I know the bucket is called, um, oh, I've got that written down here. So my bucket's this. I'll just copy the name of the folder just for expediness. There we go. No, that's not the right one, is it? My copy and pasting skills are letting me down too. It's not going well. Right. Yeah. Right. Here we go. And we're going to, so that's the name of the folder. We'll call it data.json. And we're just going to now put into the body that there, the French description. So I'm going to test that. Maybe it's because that. Just for simplicity. That one.
Says it wants a binary file. It's obviously a text file rather than, but it shouldn't really matter. It's just there you go.
Yeah,
I think it'll work now once you switch.
let's try that. Yeah, good spotting. Well done. And see, that's why they call Umbraco the friendly community. You just get people doing the demo for you. Cheers for that. So yeah, so there we go. So we've created our end-to-end journey. So now when we create a product, it can flow through and it can create a export in our location. Yeah. So there we go. We've got now our items created there. So we could obviously go through and do one for each of the different languages. We can split it all out. But the one bit I'll show you, in addition to this, what's really cool is, and really good from a development perspective, is you can start this up with a another command. And if I go back here, let me see if I can get it. With a tunnel. So you can start it up with a tunnel, which makes it temporarily accessible to the outside world, which means it's really good for development. So what you can then do, and I won't go through it all just for the test of it, but it basically redirects stuff onto you. So what we could have done in this workflow and would have probably done in real life is we would create a webhook. So rather than us hard typing what the reference code is, we'd create a webhook like this. And what we want our webhook to do is come straight in at this step here, because in Umbraco, the webhook will post the content when on the published event. So what we can then do, which makes it really easy for testing, we can start the listener. It gives us the URL to go to, like to use. I can then set up a webhook if I'm uh so my settings, I can set my webhook here. I just need to have my URL as the one, not that one. Oh yeah, let me get the right one. Well, it'd give you the right webhook basically. It's obviously not the local host one. And then when you publish it, it will just push it right through to what we're doing and run that whole event from end to end. And when you run it end to end, if we take, I'm not even sure what that is. When we run it end to end, we'll get that same trigger. Take that off there. But just from a development workflow perspective, it's just super easy to use compared to some of these other events. And there you can see, so we've gone end to end with that. Obviously, it would have pulled it off there. So there you go. So that's basically n8n and Umbraco and how we use it. It would have been slightly smoother if I hadn't realized I didn't have a hardcore since this morning and had to re-engineer it all. But I think as much as anything, the idea behind it was to demonstrate how quick and easy it is to use. And even me with my ineptitude and a couple of nice guides managed to get an end-to-end process worked out in less than an hour. And I managed to you in the course of this afternoon managed to learn how to use the latest version of Umbraco, set up the webhooks, deploy it all. So I think that's a really good illustration of why we use it, because we can quite quickly get to a position where we can show a client something that could work for them. So yeah, I won't, unless anyone wants me to sort of try show anything else or to answer any other questions, I'll happy to leave it there.
All right. Yeah, thanks for that. That was really interesting. Good use case. I've never heard of the n8n before, so that's something I gotta check out.
It's one of those that you hear lots of these things, but you don't actually see them, or you don't have the time to look into them all. So to actually see something and go, oh, here's a really practical way you can do it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a really good piece of software to use if you ever want to do something like that. I mean, as you can tell, I'm no expert in it. But just the how easy it is to integrate in with all of these other tools is so much simpler than any of the other ones I've used, and it's actually not hateful to use, which is often the case with these workflow things.
Matt, did you say you were using this with Gay Times as well as part of the publishing process?
No, what I showed when we in the last hardcore demo, we were using we had we've basically got a hardcore instance that's Gay Times, and what I tried to replicate was the same kind of workflow as that. And what the Gay Times one we actually built with a Lambda function years ago. So it uses Umbraco Heartcore, publishes it, and then the triggers the Umbraco instance, which then converted it into XML in the correct format to create the Gay Times issue in Apple News Plus. So the Gay Times stopped. I think the May issue was the last issue they published using that approach, and they've moved over to some like specific software that allows them to do other bits as well as that. But that obviously ran for years. We originally moved it, so it was originally built in Content Stack. And we moved it over to Umbraco because Content Stack was really expensive. And to be fair, then everyone did like move from Content Stack, which is relatively easy from an editor's experience. They did find it a lot better in Umbraco and more easy to use. And I mean, they had about 5 or 6 different editors writing content for it. And the fact that they could I literally provided training to one of them, and then all of the rest of them picked it up, is a really good sort of advocate for how easy it is to use, because these weren't, they're content writers and not, they weren't especially technical. So
But you could certainly make this part of a write once, publish everywhere workflow, couldn't you?
Oh yeah, 100%. And what a lot of people do is kind of use it for when they can't do into like I guess integrations on their website. So for example, kind of trying to pull together like a chatbot like experience by linking different models together in the background, like AI models together in the background. So you could, have like a OpenAI conversational, chatbot that then handles the input and converts it into the best prompts to use then in, for example, a modeling AI, or something like that. So that's
It tries
what,
to massage essentially what's coming into a format that will give you the best results from a search of some kind.
yeah, exactly, yeah. I mean, there's loads of other bits and pieces within it that you can use, like around like all of the different files manipulations. Like I mean, we saw those for days. But there's you can build in all the complicated flows. So like you can have if and or filter out bits and loop through processes, and you can even do things like send an email and wait for a response. So you could have a workflow that literally was sent an email to a client, waited for their response, and when that response came back, create a ticket in your CRM system to then chase it up. So I mean, there's some amazing examples online of people using these. So it's definitely if you're interested in or have a situation where you want to do a kind of event-driven workflow, it's definitely worth looking at.
No one from HQ. Oh no, it's been recorded. I'll save that for a minute.
Oh, I think a few people from HQ would be interested in this for sure.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what I've presented today as a concept, as you can see, it's not exactly the most.
No, but for what you need it for in terms of proving, hey, we can get from this to this in a short amount of time, and then okay, now we know the proof of concept works, and then go away. We can then go away and massage it and make it real and redundant and all the other things that you might need to do. It's a really fast way to get things going, and
Yeah.
also it provides you all the hookups to the various other things from the looks of it.
Oh yeah, you can create some really complicated workflows. Both a lot, you can do it internally. So you could even like some people use it around like their DevOps things. So, when something's been committed to GitHub, you could then, you could use it. I mean, I know most of these things already have those things built in, but yeah, for us, it's definitely to your point, it's the case of spending, getting the client to spend 5K to prove that their 50K project has actually got some legs. Because they never sign off a 50K project if there's risk associated with it, is really our experience of it. And it is great for that. And yeah. Any other questions?
No, I don't think so. Yeah, thanks again for walking through that. Yeah, definitely lots of potential of what you could do with it. So, gosh, definitely something I need to check out more.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks everyone. Anyone. Thanks everyone. Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. And you can also, if you're ever in the UK, visit me and maybe Dean at Colchester Digital. So we're right by that 1,000-year-old castle, so you can't miss us.
Matt, while you're here, I can publicly embarrass you and ask you, would you write this up for Script magazine for the rest of the Umbraco community? Because I think if you've done a step by step.
Oh yeah, maybe I could make it linear then as well, rather than turn backwards and forth. Oh no, we did. Yeah, I could certainly. Yeah, if you give me a shout offline, I can certainly.
I think there might be somebody from Script magazine here.
There is, yeah. If I could somehow get your email address, I'd love to connect with you and
yeah. So I put my email
tell you about our
address
process
in the chat, and yeah, but yeah,
I want to stop recording first, Kevin.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I got as far as the map bit, but I reckon most people could guess that.